this video is going to show you solo Grandmaster Nightfall getting Platinum rank, which this week is the Lake of Shadows. For those that just want to see this, then skip the timestamps you have available to you. Other than that, I can show you my build, my weapons, etc. So this run is more of a novelty run straight away, right? It's not a super serious run. It's more of me testing out a new exotic weapon and loadouts and things. So if you're looking for a serious run, don't watch this. Right? With like the absolute top tier best loadout, right? But this loadout is decent and it's an interesting run. So the Grandmaster modifiers, I'm sure we all know, they have fixed modifiers. The only modifiers that change are the outside mods. So far left changes, far right changes, and the champions change depending on the GM. For this particular GM, I'm not going to cover them all. There's Epitaph on, taking combatants generate these blight wall things, right? Champions unstoppable and overload. And then incoming environmental damage is increased and knockback damage and distance. Notice there's no burn. So we're on a Warlock here. This is bottom tree Dawnblade, Attunement of Flame with Solar Grenade, Heal and Rift. Pairing that with the exotic helmet, Dawn Chorus. I can talk more about this setup in the run itself. This is just the basic information. My armor is a Protective Light build. So I'm using Protective Light on the class item. Shield Break Charge, Fire and Ice, and Elemental Charge. So what does that mean? It means when we kill a champion, we get a well, thus giving us Elemental Charge to proc Protective Light. And then when we break an Elemental Shield, matching one, we also get Protective Light. So it's just a mini Protective Light build. That is all it is. It's pretty basic. You see this a lot. In terms of everything else, scavengers on the boots, particle deconstruction, arc damage resistance, concussive, dampener. I'm using an arc chestplate, which I don't recommend. I recommend you use a solar chestplate. But I'm familiar with this GM to the point where it doesn't matter to me, right? But if you're new to it, definitely run solar resist. 100%. I'm just using it because of the stats, mainly the stats on it. The gauntlets. Now the gauntlets are interesting because they're master dungeon gauntlets from the new dungeon. They only drop for the master difficulty. The reason why I'm using these is because you can use a loader and then put an artifact mod in the end socket, right? So then I can use bow loader, right, and then unstoppable sidearm. So I've got both champions covered and a loader. So that's why I'm sort of using them. I would recommend high recovery, high discipline on this setup, and I've also got ammo finders, 2 of them on the helmet. So weapons. So we're using the Halo Sidearm or Halo Magnum or whatever it's called, that's been put into Destiny since the 30th anniversary. We're using this because it doesn't work like any other sidearm and it's out of curiosity. I'll talk more about the weapon in the run itself. I'll just quickly read out what it's got on it. So the main perk is oversized sidearm with extended range, heavy caliber rounds, fires full auto with increased rate of fire, deals increased precision damage to unshielded targets. I do not have the catalyst, so I can't show you gameplay of that, but basically it'll add a perk called the Rock or something, and you get an extra frag grenade for every kill. I mean, that's just what I've read about it, right? I haven't used it because obviously I haven't grinded Zerd out because I haven't played Destiny, of course. Then we've got Flared Magwell. Pace yourself, tap the trigger gives this weapon less recoil, and smooth grip. That's what it's got on it. Then we're using a standard arc bow that I would use with explosive head, taken spec in there, and then a linear fusion rifle, threaded needle with Vorpal weapon, and taken spec in it also. That was the setup I was using. So as we start, we'll obviously summon our Sparrow just for a quick entrance to the Nightfall. Just be careful because you are in a public zone, but all the enemies can still do increased damage to you. It's not like what you would be on patrol. So you got to be careful of that. But generally, you're okay. If there's a flag, rally it. But by no means do you need to have a flag there to do this solo section for this, right? I just rallied it because it was there for a reason. It didn't give me my server in time. Probably summon my Sparrow to some. But what you want to do is nade the 2 phalanxes. As soon as you nade the 2 phalanxes, if you are going to use an arc bow like me, break their shield, and that will then clear out the 2 phalanxes. And you can, as I said, if you did have a rally there, you can obviously do that and use your server. If not, you just use your nade. See, this class, the nade is very good, and the grenade can clear out waves and waves of enemies, because I'm sure we know it got a buff a couple of months ago where it does chain damage, like what Sunshot does, or what Fawn does in its own little way. So the nade is very powerful, one of the most powerful grenades in the game. There was one sound still left alive. That's fine. But what I want to do is bait the champion. So you can take the champion from multiple ways. It depends on what weapon loadout you're using. Right? If you're using like a Telesto with a linear, you can one cycle the champs, or even Jotun, or if just depends on what you're using. For this loadout, I want to take the champion from this side. I can take the champion from near side, wherever you want. But as I said, my position will change depending on what weapon I'm using. I'm using this Forerunner, so I'm testing out to see what sort of damage it's doing, how good is it in GM level, because it doesn't really matter, right? If I test this out in master difficulty, people aren't interested. They want to know, right, how does the weapon perform in end game content GM level, right? And if it's overall bad, then people are going to shy away from it. But overall, it's very good. Obviously, it's unstoppable sidearm this season, right? Now, I don't believe it's got any built-in mods, which I don't believe so. So it's only going to be sort of relevant for GMs if there's a sidearm mod. So that's the only thing. Now, I'm taking down a Blight. Why am I doing that? Well, apparently they've patched the old thing. Now, I haven't watched anyone else's run this week, but I just done a run before this, didn't take the Blight, travelled up there, and the sniper spawned in no matter what. They spawn in no matter what. So you can't cheese this area anymore. As I said, my own experience, I haven't watched anyone else's run, because I haven't been sort of like involved with Destiny so much, like over Christmas and this week. So I haven't watched anyone else's run, but when I done this, the sniper spawned in whether I took the Blight down or not. So in other words, you need to do it the old-fashioned way, and you just spawn in the snipers and stuff, because they done their fix. They also fixed a couple of other things with this GM, which I can talk about later. So that changes things to my old Lake of Shadows completions, because my old Lake of Shadow completions obviously didn't involve these champs, but you still got platinum. That's fine. All this does is extend the time of the run. That's all it's doing. It's pretty simple, this section. You just want to take out first the overload. This first overload though, you saw I took the sniper to my right, because the sniper to your right will hide and eventually peek you, but that sniper will only peek you when you overload the champ. Or if you wait. But generally that sniper's going to be sneaky and hide until you sort of engage with the overload, then they push you. That's how they work. So I just take them with the bow. That's why we use an arsenic bite, because it's got explosive head. It doubles down on the overload bow. They're the best overload bows in the game. You can make other bows work, I'm not saying you can't. And to be honest with you, you could definitely make a frenzy, shoot to loot frenzy bow. I have a shoot to loot frenzy one. I just forgot to use it. I keep forgetting about that bow. But it would work perfect for this strap, especially when you get to the boss fight. So if you want to use your shoot to loot, if you've got a shoot to loot dragonfly one, you can get away with the dragonflies. It really isn't as good as what maybe frenzy will be, because frenzy gives you additional damage to the champs. So it speeds up taking out champs. Right? The unstoppables are pushing, so we're going to retreat. I wasn't sure if both unstoppables pushed or just one pushed. That's fine. We'll get a stun with the sidearm, which I'm pointing out the obvious, but just so you know, it's just one shot off the sidearm, sort of, to stop. I wasn't sure, sort of, is it one or two? I didn't know. So obviously, as I said, this is my first time using it in a GM. I haven't really had time to use it at all, to be honest. Only 5 minutes. So, I might not have been using this weapon as effective as I should be. Feels very accurate. Its range drop off is insane. It just, like, it's doing, that's maximum damage for 4070 damage, and that's a good decent amount of range, and it goes further back than that. I don't know what the range drop off is. I haven't obviously tested that out, but you'll see later on there is range drop off with this weapon, because I start fighting from range with it a little bit, so you'll see that. So now we'll take out the two snipers. So there's two snipers, there's three actually, there's two, there's one on a bus, one to the left of the Blight, one to the right. Take out those first, don't be dealing with anything else other than those. Obviously this is after you took out the two unstoppables. A lot of the stuff that I'm doing is a slow approach to it, but it's to get you to get a guaranteed run on it. Right? This isn't a run to optimize to push for time and stuff like that. It isn't a speed run, because we don't do the speed runs any longer. Often people ask me about the speedruns and things, and I've tried to explain to people, like, if you look into the history of me, you'll see that I used to do that stuff. I don't do that. Ever since Shadowkeep come out, I don't speedrun anymore. This game's not built for speedrun, and you need to sort of accept that. It's not, well, it kind of is now, I guess, with the sword, the Eager Edge sword. So it's give the speedrunning community something. So I'm glad to see a lot of speedrunners are happy with that sword, right? It's give them the old exotic sword back, in a sense. It's give them something to strive for, and that's fine. I hope they're happy and they grind their runs. But as I said, when people comment on my runs, mine are developed now. I develop all my content around imagining how the viewer would do a run. So my run is entirely different category to speedruns. So try not to, like, there's a couple people I know and they keep going about speedruns. Try not to bog me down with that, because as I said, I'm not looking to do that anymore. Because the main reason is I never grew off it for years and years and years. Never got any recognition, nothing off it. Getting records and all that, I've done all that, and for me, it didn't work for me. It will work for some people. You'll know speedrunners and be like, yeah, I know him, and it's like it works for them. That's good. It never really worked out in the end for me. In the end, this style of video ended up being better. So that's why we do these types of videos, rather than trying to push for time. Obviously, still doing, you know, decent enough play. We've saved a super for this bit, because obviously on my previous GM Lake of Shadows runs, we didn't have these ads spawn. Now there's a bunch of captains and things. Now in hindsight, the solo bow might have been a little bit better, but then I would have had to use a different linear. Ideally, the best type of run would be Arbalest with an overload bow, and then an unstoppable fusion, because Arbalest can one-shot any match game shield. So that will be an absolute top tier pick. So I highly recommend to do the double linear with an energy bow, Arbalest and an unstoppable threaded needle. Doesn't matter what you use, because Arbalest will deal with all your shields. It's a big game changer, Arbalest. Obviously I already made a video about Arbalest last year, like the end of last year, saying how good it is. But obviously on this loadout, I've got to make the loadout work a little bit better to my liking. So I preferred using the arc bow, because the arc phalanx is annoying at the start. There's an arc phalanx coming up, and this bow has explosive head, so I like it better for overloads. And I like having the void linear, because there's a void wizard coming up. Like, there's only one void shield, but that void wizard is annoying enough for me to want to put on a void linear. Right, so that, but as I said, if I ran Arbalest, it wouldn't matter. Arbalest would deal with the wizard. So we're dealing with these unstoppables from back here, just because we're not one cycling champs. Obviously we're not. I'm going to stun that champion to my right, because the right champion was getting us weak. Obviously every time we kill a champion, we will get a elemental well. That's because of fire and ice. We've combined that with elemental charge, which states you get charge of light via a well. You then get protective light. So I have two ways of getting protective light: via champions, which there's a lot of champions in this, and a lot of shields. So, you know, it's not a high damage build. You know, it's not like high NG fire. But as I said, the high NG fire strat would be a time run, right? It would be something where you want to push yourself a little bit for time. But most people aren't pushing themselves for time. They're pushing themselves for the loot, right? They want Ascendant Shards, endgame materials. They want Adept Palindrome, whatever it is. I think this week it's Adept Palindrome and Swarm. That's the loot this week. So people are farming the weapons, right? Okay, if you ask a player who, you know, who isn't super sweaty but he likes his destiny, you say, right, do you want a solo grandmaster done in 22 minutes with not the weapon you got, or do you want a solo GM in 30 minutes consistently every time, but you're starting to get more loot? The guy would say, oh, I don't care about the extra 8 minutes, I'll take that as long as I'm getting consistent loot. So there's less risks. So that, as I said before, these runs are more tailored to other people. So this is the best place to take this arc shield. The reason why we stand here to the far left, if you stand on the other side, on the right hand side, you have less visibility on the phalanx. makes it a little bit more harder to hit him. So fight from the left. You can get all the sounds and the phalanxes without the overlord seeing you. That's the big thing. Then I do like to come over to the right, but you could go from the left, find a bit of cover and do your strafe. So the strat to this is just strafe and in and out. They'll charge, you'll hear the audio cue, they'll charge, they'll uncharge. If you stand out like maybe half a second longer than what you should, they'll end up shooting. Just make sure they don't hit you. I believe you need to be tier 4 resilience minimum with concussive dampener and you survive it. You don't need sniper resistance. I believe that's what it is. If you run tier 3 resilience, then you're going to need a sniper damage resistance. That's what it was when I tested it, like the start of this season when it first came out. After testing, if you, as I said, tier 3 resilience, it's slightly not enough. You need a sniper resistance on. But if you run the tier 4 resilience, that's enough as long as you got a concussive, you know. But the actual best resistance, as I said at the start of the video, will be tier 4 resilience, a solar damage resistance, and a concussive dampener. So you'd need your solar plate. But as I said, I wanted to run my arc plate just because of the stats it offers. It had, you know, really good stats. So that's the overlords dealt with. I didn't spam my heavy. I also remembered there was a heavy brick back here. Always remember with my gameplay, sometimes I leave bricks on the floor and go back for them later. So some people will point out and say, oh, you missed a brick. If you keep watching the whole thing, you'll see I go back from the bricks. I do sometimes miss my ammo, but it's very rare that I do. So I'm always managing my ammo constantly, like that. So to optimize this little bit here, it's really good to do on a Warlock. I highly recommend you do it. You just need to be quick about it. Spawn kill this solar knight here. So I do a solar grenade and then 2 swipes with my super. So obviously you need a super for this. And then just go down the stairs and super the knight. The super will kill a knight. My knight, the ultra yellow bar knight, he fell off the map. I got points for him. So either way, it doesn't matter. If your knight doesn't fall off, then you'll still kill him with your super. So now we're baiting out the unsalvables. So you want to bait them out in this corridor. To do that, just peek shoot. Try not to peek. Try not to face the champion too long in that corridor because he'll just do his shield blast. So you need to know, you know, the radius, if you like, and how frequent you show yourself depends on whether they shield blast you or not. But you need to be in the radius of them to do that. As you can see, I melted that first champion. I went for damage with the linear, and on the second stun I finished him with Forerunner, which Forerunner is putting out okay damage. He takes special ammo, as you can see. I believe it's 72 max. My problem with this exotic is this: you can't run Sidearm Scavenger. Sidearm Scavenger doesn't exist in the game anymore because they took that out because sidearms, as we know, are primaries, but this weapon is a sidearm. So there's no way to get Scavenger. Not from what I haven't seen anyone talk about it, but as far as I'm looking at this weapon, there's no sidearm ammo finders. Does it work by hand cannon? Has anyone tested that? I haven't a clue. Now this unstoppable respawned. So this is a bug in the game. This was happening to me a few weeks ago as well. If you finish a champion and you get no kill credit, it means the champion's not killed, so it's bugged. So in other words, don't finish any champs. It's kind of a shame because if you want to run a special ammo finisher build, you're in danger of that champ not dying. Because if you notice, when I finished him originally, I didn't get an elemental well. Now I thought, why I didn't get elemental well? Or maybe it's just because the well didn't spawn. No, it was because the champion never actually died from the finisher. It's a bug. It's been bugged. Been bugged for quite a bit. I've got a lot of clips of champs just respawning and not dying. So if you don't get kill credit, when you finish a champ, retreat to the previous room and just wait for the unstoppable to respawn, because that unstoppable nearly killed us. I believe Protective Light saved us. I'll do a nade to my left. I was saving a solar nade for the Scions on the left there. Obviously we killed the sniper and the 2 orange bar phalanxes. Now we come to the bridge area. This is how I do it. This is my approach. I'll bow these overlords down. The reason why I'm not going for the heavy, like using a lot of linear, is because I don't know how my future drops are going to be. I have got double linear ammo finder on. The problem is though, I'm using a primary, which is the bow, but I'm using special, which means we're not going to get there as much heavy because we're using primary special heavy. If you didn't know, if you run double special heavy, you have an increased chance at heavy on top of your linear ammo finders or whatever ammo finder you're using for what loadout. So the heavy rate will be slightly reduced to compared to what it usually will be, because usually I would use, say I used an unstoppable sidearm that's just a standard one, and then an overload bow, I will get a lot more heavy from a linear, but that isn't going to be true for this loadout. But this loadout's still okay because it's got 72 rounds, so that's a lot of ammo to do to put in work on unstoppables. Like if I'm running out of linear and I'm facing a lot of unstoppables, it doesn't really matter because I've got a lot of ammo from Forerunner. I believe every phase you can sort of take a third HP off each champ, so you can kill an unstoppable in 3 stuns with this weapon. So we're taking out the second overload, which is on the bridge. Be careful in your positioning, but generally that overload, if you stand at the right angle, he'll just snipe the bridge in front of you. Just depends on where the overload is standing. You just need to evaluate that. At first, strafe shoot between the wall, left and right. But if you can see he's just hitting the same spot, you can just stand there and bow them down. Now I'll come behind this box. Now the reason why I do this is because you need to take this scion, the scions below us, or they were below us. We need to take them in 2 phases. There'll be like an initial wave of scions push you, and there'll be scions waiting for you. Use your Sullenade and a Healing Rift. And then the Dawn Chorus and the Burn effect, you know, all together, it'll wipe out the group of scions. That's the best way of dealing with them. Don't try and use your bow too much, because you're gonna have to do a bit of damage, and they do wreck you, sounds. So the best way of dealing with that little bit there is just using your grenade. Now we'll come to this top bridge here, and we're going to use our super. I wouldn't recommend doing it any other way really, because obviously we haven't got a solar bow, and if you do, then it's different. If you use an arbalist, you can do whatever you want, but for me I had to use a super, which it's a good use of a super, to be honest, right there, because it's saving on ammo, it's saving on everything. So there's 2 unstoppables, 2 champions, sorry, left. So I just want to see. I generally don't do it like this. I generally go over the other side, but the overload wasn't pushing, because ideally, if you want to skip these champs, not skip them, but change the angle on the champs, then you're gonna have to stun that overload, because that overload will just snipe you twice and you'll be dead. So in other words, you need to play it by ear. If the overload doesn't push, best thing you do is just deal with the unstoppable. Just do damage to unstoppable, because you know, obviously unstoppable won't regen health. So we just take him from here. Then the overload should push. We'll stun him, because I don't really like fighting from over there, because you'll find the overload can just sort of hide and stuff. Like, it's more consistent is what I'm trying to say over this side. I like to do it from here. And we just strafe bow from here. My heavy count is low, and I was checking my ammo, and there wasn't much purple anywhere, to be honest. Like, in terms of the scions, when we killed the scions or any of the phalanxes, they didn't drop any heavy. I think there was a heavy brick drop, but it fell off map. Or it might be on the bridge and I missed it, but that's the thing. So I'm only on a 7 ammo count, so I'm not going to be using linear on this champ. We'll pick up the elemental well to up on our charge of light. Notice it's ×2. That means the protective light will last longer, as opposed to a ×1. And that goes up and up, by the way. Now we'll do a Sullenade on the goblins. That's very important. If you want to really do this easy, then your best thing is to do a nade on those goblins as soon as, before they make the champ immune. The unstoppable has pushed us. This is great. You'll see good positioning here, because this is really good. So what I'm doing here is bait the champion to the point where he does his shield bash, and there's enough time between stuns so I can continually keep stunning him. So you'll see this, and it works out really good. So I'm showing myself, and I strafe. I know the exact timing on the shield bash. The point is to sort of re-aggro and then de-aggro the champ at the same time. So I've aggroed him, I've de-aggroed him, he's going back, and then I re-aggro, and then you can do all the damage. So if you don't do that, the champ will back up to where the Solar Knight is. That presents you a problem, because then you have to melt down that champ. If you haven't got the heavy to do it, you can't do that. So that's the thing. You can come back here, but if you don't get him in the stun, you're going to have to retreat back to the exit, which that's where the Solar Knight can see you. So you can see why, if you can continually stun that champ in the corridor, it benefits you. It makes the whole thing a lot easier than what it needs to be. So this knight will track your last known position. Once you reveal yourself, I got caught by the blast there from the wall. But once you reveal yourself, he will then track your new location. But as I said, he'll only know where your last was. That's important to know that. So he knows that I was last at the door, right? So he's going to continually blast the door and do his solo move. Now it's a shame on this setup, I forgot about Bomber, because I was using Projectile on my class item, so that was a void piece. Generally on this class I like to use a solar class item with solar. So I can use Bomber, so when I do my rift I get nade energy. Because your grenade's so important on this fit, but as I said, we get through it, it's not a problem. What I'm trying to do is let the goblins come over. Because the goblins, I think there's 3 goblins or something. They will make the knight immune, of course. Surprisingly, the sidearm deals with the goblins just like what sort of a sniper would because of its scope. So that was really interesting. We'll do a healing rift here, we'll do a solar nade. And then we're going to use some linear. It's critical you get these solar knights down after you've done a nade, because then you're just going to have to wait. If they re-shield up, you'll have to wait for another nade. That's how it is when you're not using a solar bow or a solar linear. This is what you sort of got to do. Obviously with Arbalest, as I said before, it would make it a cinch. One shot, break the shield, and then you get damage with Arbalest and just melt the knights. So this presents another problem with this, because there's an orange bar solar knight. There's obviously an Overlord champion with him. Now the Overlord champion will stick to that knight like glue for the most part. So it presents a problem. So you could use a super if you wanted to, but I would recommend, if you're low on heavy, you save a super at this point, because you're going to want a super for the next room. I would recommend that, because there's a solar wizard. So we do a solar nade on the knight. Because of the solar nade, it's just splash damage to the Overlord. If the Overlord isn't overloaded, he's going to be enraged. Right, so I'm just strafing between this pillar, left and right, and using heavy when possible. I know we need heavy for later on, but it's so important to burst the Solar Knight down. Once the Solar Knight's down, you're good. Another thing you can do is sort of overload the champion, then do a Solar Nade to the to the knight. The only problem is with that, because of Dawn Chorus, it improves the burn effect. So the burn lasts ages, and the champ will get burnt, and he'll just burn over and over and over, and it'll make them, as I say, enraged. And you can't deal with the Overload and the Solar Knight at the same time. So you got to pick. You got to pick what to do. That's where your healing rift comes in. Now we're just gonna continually overload this champ, finishing with the Forerunner. Nice. And then we can proceed. Getting the wells. Your timing has to be really good on this. As soon as possible, you do a Solar Nade. The Solar Nade was hitting. The Goblin actually made the Knight immune really fast, which was unfortunate. But you can see I'm getting 198 burn damage. Taking a Shadow Frawler's push, but he's still burnt, so it's keeping his shield off. And then we get the Solar Knight. I've used more heavy than I wanted to, and I've got no heavy to get. So we're not in a good situation for heavy, but literally I only need one shot to take the shield, and then we'll use a super for the wizard. Before you, this is a top tip for this room, don't go in that room until the goblins are dead. It may be a slow approach, but What you end up doing with that is, if you go in the room, the goblins will push you and the solar wizard will spawn Shadow Thrall. One Shadow Thrall can get you super weak off a melee. Add damage off the wizard and then the goblins, that's a death. Protective Light or not, that will be a death. So the easy way of doing it is just slowly take the goblins from the room before. You got a bow on, so obviously it's going to be easier that way. Once those are dead, don't enrage the wizard. This pillar is a really good place to fight from. I do a healing rift. And you need to enrage, you need to not enrage, but you need to aggro the wizard. Just shoot at the wall, whatever. As soon as you aggro the wizard, take down the shield, jump across. Be careful not to hit the taken walls. And then you just want to do a super. See how much that wizard actually does melt, because Protective Light actually procced while we were in a Roman super. Which, by the way, super resistance does stack with Protective Light and your resilience and all that stuff. So even after all that, the wizard's still nearly killing us. So be sure to use Phoenix Dive. I know there's a lot of folks don't really understand how they don't even know what Phoenix Dive is. Like, it's funny to me that people know, everyone knows what Shatter Dive is, which has been out a year, but yet Phoenix Dive has been out since 2017, and people don't know any clue about it. Probably because it's not clear on the subclass tree what it is. You know, it's on bottom tree Dawnblade, you know. A lot of people don't even think bottom tree Dawn's good, but as I said, it is good. It is definitely one of the best classes in the game, period. Because it's got health regen when you do the Phoenix Dive. Its super's amazing, even for damage. It's got a lot of, obviously a lot of benefits. Now I'm trying to aggro this champ. Eventually the champ did aggro on me. You sort of need to multitask and keep an eye on your left while you fight the Scions. If you're lucky, the Overlord will be just aggroed straight away anyways. Once that happens though, you obviously need a bit of cover. Because as I said, you can't really survive more than 2 snipes, you'll be dead. So you really need to be careful of that. Again, our ammo count for linear is really low. Special ammo wise is good, so I could have optimized a bit more Forerunner than what I did. That's fine. We're using a solar grenade for the sounds. Just do a solar grenade round the corner, then hide. All the sounds will definitely die to that, and then you're good to go. You don't need to waste your time with the bow. This bow is obviously really good at negating the sounds from duplicating, but the nade is king for that. So anytime you can sort of save a nade for sounds, do it. You know, you don't need the additional damage on the champ. The champ's going to die anyways to your bow, so you really don't need to be nading the champ there. It's the sounds of the most important thing. Second Overlord is a good place to stand here behind the pillars. The only thing I would say about doing this strat is consistent, but if you mess up your bow shot and you enrage the champ will almost certainly kill you here, because the cover, it is cover to avoid from the sniper but not from the enrage attack. So what I would say is, if you're not confident, just use your bow. Make sure your bow is fully drawn for each shot, where you get the Overlord ping. The bow will make a ping noise to say it's procced. Obviously there's less chances of the champion being enraged with an Overlord, with an explosive head bow. But if it's a standard bow with just Archer's tempo and it hasn't got any weapon buffs on it, there's a small chance you could just enrage that champ, and if he does it there's no way of you really surviving it. There's no way to strafe because it's a solid wall behind you. Right, so you've got to be super careful with that champ. But as I said, it's a good angle to take him to avoid his sniper shots. Because if you do it on the stairs, there's no room. There's no room to fight, and the Overlord will hide. It makes it more awkward, and you don't want awkward. This Overlord, the last one, isn't too bad. So you just strafe on the stairs. Pretty simple to do. Champ is literally weak. We're not going to finish the champ. Obviously I could, but there's a risk that the champion respawns. So, as I said, I wouldn't even bother doing that at this moment in time. Now you want to stay up here and deal with the Solar Knight. The Solar Knight will just push you. So you can do a Solar Nade, or whatever weapon you're using, and then just take the knight from here. That's pretty simple. And then there's two sound, not sounds, but they're Thrall, taking Thrall. And then we get onto the Blights. So I did say there's been some patches with this Nightfall, right? So number one, the first set of Blights, that cheese is gone. You now need to take champs, as far as I'm aware, as far as what I've seen. But the roof exploit is the same. They haven't touched it. More than likely because they don't know about it, or they've seen it and they've chose to ignore it and let people do it. I don't know. But the idea is that you should leave the Blight one shot. Now I made a mistake, and the mistake is I took down the Blight when I didn't want to. So that means now the boss is going to spawn in and I have to make my jumps for the roof exploit. But I made it first time, so that's just because of muscle memory from doing it last year. I'm used to the jump, right? But I would just watch that. If you don't have any idea about this and you've never seen it, you need to watch it a couple of times. There's multiple ways to get up here. You can use Thunder Crash Titan, you can use another jump, you can use the jump I used. But what I should have done is left the Blight one shot, because here's the thing. This build can still penetrate Blights. There's only a couple of things that can penetrate Blights. Fawn can do it, so if you're using Fawn, that can penetrate it. However, Fawn, I don't highly recommend it because there's no mods for hand cannons this season, so it's kind of not good. If it was Overload hand cannon, it'd be perfect, but it's not. But with Bomb Tree Dawn, if your nade will penetrate, the nade itself won't, but the burn damage will. So my idea would be, I've done obviously in the past where you've left the Blight open on a previous run, and you can take your time to get up here. But obviously on my run, I had to get up here first time, which I did. And then you can just, as I say, rotate up here. It's the same as what I've done last year, so I'm sure if you're watching, you've saw the runs where people come up here. Now the Wolf Tone draw with shoot to loot would work really nice, because you could clear out all the ads. Any heavy that drops, you shoot that brick, you get it. Now what I'm trying to do here is take this Solar Knight. If a Solar Knight does push in middle like this, then it'll only be one. Due to my experiences with this, it's only ever one Knight you need to clear. There's generally a couple of Knights that spawn, but generally it's only one Knight. Now that's, as I said, I'm just waiting for a Solar Nade with the Knight. The Knight, as I said earlier, it's so important to know, they track your last location. The Knight can kill you up here, so if the Knight knows where you are and he does his solar fire, you better move quick, because you can die so quick. And I don't have solar resist on, so I'm making this a little bit more trickier for myself. That's why I do recommend the solar resist. You could even maybe just go double solar resist. It wouldn't be a bad option, because if you play passive enough, the concussive, I suppose, it isn't needed so much, and you have got protective light. A double solar resist, they do stack. It wouldn't be an idea. It wouldn't be a bad idea. If Knights are your problem, just go double solar. There's no right or wrong answer. It's what suits your playstyle. You know. Obviously we used a super as we started this, which done a third HP, which is really good. We've done that because this super tracks enemies, right? So if you use your super and the Scions up, the super's going to probably track the Scions rather than the boss. Obviously we don't need to clear out all these Scions, right? It's not in our interest to. Now you can see the Sidearm here. Look at the range. I don't know what range this is, but it's doing maximum damage to him. And then when he starts to back up over here, when I get my crit, so you can see 31343003, that's when I'm starting to experience range drop off. So that's exceptional for a Sidearm. Obviously this Sidearm doesn't work like anything in Destiny. The battle pulse rifle, the battler, whatever it's called, that's sort of in the same ballpark in terms of it doesn't abide by Destiny rules in terms of how a pulse would work. I mean it does, but it doesn't, because its range is exceptional. The scope on it's amazing. And in my books, continue making some weapons like that, because I know it's kind of funny having like a pulse, you know, or a Sidearm like that. But as I said, I'm not saying legendary sidearms should be like this. Definitely not. I'm not suggesting that at all. But exotic sidearms, let them have more range. Let Rat King have more range. Why not? You know, it's an exotic. It's incentivizing using like Rat King or whatever you know, or whatever you're using. Boss is super weak now. As I said, we're just doing damage from here. Testing out the sidearm. As I said, the sidearm's pretty good. It just depends where the boss is for this. If the boss is super far away, I'll just use the bow. I have a super as well, which I will use. I'm just waiting for the boss to sort of come middle a little bit, because if I do it now, the super will just track all the sounds below rather than the boss. So I'm going to use Solar Nade here to try and clear out all the sounds. The boss does a tether as well. If you jump and he tethers you, you will fall to your death down there. So obviously, don't jump. You know, do your healing rifts, go around the edge of the building. You don't need to stand in one place. If you crouch, you can't shoot the enemies, so just know that. At this point, as I said, I'm just doing damage with the bow, but I will pop my super. One last thing I thought to mention is that the boss's HP has been meant to have been buffed, but it's been nerfed, so there's a bug. So this boss has less HP than what he used to on Grandmaster difficulty. I don't know about the other difficulties, but for definitely on GM, I think in general it's less. So it's actually been nerfed by accident. So that was the run with Forerunner, the exotic sidearm. Hope you enjoy. Thank you.